Welcome to the Creating Wealth and Wellness podcast. Your hosts, Amanda Kingsley and Tara Missildine, team up to take you on a journey where freedom is cultivated through personal development, where women connect to fuel their futures, and where wealth is created as a byproduct of being well.
Welcome back to Wealth and Wellness. We are creating wealth and wellness here on this podcast with Amanda Kingsley and myself, Tara Missildine. This week, we are going to be talking about something probably everybody's pretty familiar with, and some more than others, which will become obvious. So, Amanda, hello.
Hey.
Are you excited to talk about social media today?
I find myself giggling all the time. I think it's just like...
I think we do it to each other.
We do. I was going to say... something about our energy, yeah.
It totally does. We become giggle magnets.
I just did it, and I was like, "Oh, there you are with that giggle again."
I know it happens to me all the time. I don't notice it when I'm doing it as much as I notice when I have listened back to episodes, and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, we're like a little giggle factory." But it's true because we also bring the shit. So
yeah,
it's okay. We can get shits and giggles, right?
We're good at that.
Okay, so we're going to be talking about social media today, which is something I admire you so much for. You are like a wizard when it comes to this stuff. And I probably have some decent things in my back pocket, but it's nothing like what you have. So this may sound a lot like an interview episode as usual, but we each have our gifts, right? And so you're going to help bring yours to the table today. Before we do that, however, though, let's start with our gratitudes.
Perfecto. Do you want me to start?
Always.
I'm going to start with ginger. Before we sat down, I made myself a quart-sized jar of warm water with ginger and lemon. And I just want to say that my cheat to ginger, because I don't always have like fresh ginger root in the house, is the Trader Joe's like ginger paste. It's just like ground up ginger. And so like if you look at my water, for anyone who's watching the video, it's like cloudy and gunky and full of ginger chunks, but I love it. So go find yourself some ginger paste. Trader Joe's.
Pretty warming. Yeah.
It's so
Trader Joe's has a lot of those like really cool little ingredient specialty things.
It just makes me feel good. So thank you, Trader Joe's.
Cool. Thanks, Trader Joe's, for ginger. Okay, my gratitude is going to be for our new kitten today. We have had her for about a month, and I had 1.5 million reservations about getting another cat. I have had traditionally very neurotic non-cat cats that were like crazy dogs. And this kitten is everything that I could have wanted and more. I will definitely put some pictures of her up on our social media pages. You can find us Creating Wealth and Wellness on Facebook. So I will put some adorable pictures of her. She is half Siamese and half black tiger, and she is just completely magical with eyes that turn purple in the sun. And she has bonded so hard with Aria that I can just tell that they are sisters. Like they have this cosmic sisterhood thing going on. And we really lucked out. She's so amazing. Everything we wanted and more. So I'm super grateful for her.
Was she like a breed blend that you were looking for?
No, it was completely unintentional. I mean, and actually, we didn't even get to choose her, but it didn't matter because the reason nobody chose her was because she was supposed to be Aria's. They have a really cool story, her kitten origin story, but we don't have to go into it now. Maybe I'll make a post or something about it. If people want to know more, feel free to ask about it on her picture, and I'll be happy to share details. But right now, we need to talk about social media and the power of sharing kittens.
I love social media, right? What better?
I know you do.
Such a good entry to social media, kittens.
Kittens, the gateway to social media.
Well played.
Okay, so let's see.
All right, well, how about we start with me just telling you some reasons why I love social media.
I love it. And then also we have I would love to ask that you give a list of healthy ways of engaging with social media, because you do it in a beautiful way. And
I think they'll kind of blend.
Okay, cool. Let's go for it.
I mean, I could do this for hours and hours and hours.
And your co-host is the girl who's been on like a multiple month social media fast for the most
Yeah,
part.
and so that's the first thing I think that's really important is just understanding you can't be inauthentic, right? If social media is not your place, it's going to be really hard to make it your place. But you have to sort of check in with the reasons that it's not your place. You have to dig into your limiting beliefs. You have to sort of balance, like, even though it might not be my favorite place, is the end result going to give me what I want to, whatever. So I'm going to say, okay, let me step back to number one, which I think is, if you are planning on joining social media, because there are still some people who are not, or if you are on social media and want like a reset, or if you've been using social media personally and you want to move into using social media for business and networking, the most important thing for me comes back to the why, right? Know why you want to use social media. What is your reason? If you're only there to share pictures of your family and your new kitten with your great aunt and your cousin and your best friend from college, then just stay that way. Don't feel like because other people are sharing resources and running their businesses, and just stay there for the reason you want to be there. So if you want to be there to share your life of your family, then be there for that. If you want to be there to meet new people, then set that intention in everything you do on social media. I want to vibrate at a level. Now we're going to talk all woo, but I cannot talk woo.
We already discussed that we both have summer homes in woo, so.
Right? So put out what you want to get back. Like, if you want to put out a vibe of I'm here to meet new people for whatever the reason is, put out that vibe. Like, be friendly, be authentic, stand by your integrity. Like, send out what you want to get back. And so if you're the kind of person who gets on social media and complains about your partner not cleaning up the dinner dishes, or complaining about your boss expecting you to come to a new meeting, or complaining about, that's what you're going to get back. Your news feed is going to be filled with those things. So put out the vibe that you want to get back. Some people will say to me, like, I have to leave social media because all I read are political nonsense and negativity. And I'm looking at them like, I don't have any of that on my newsfeed. Like, I have sculpted it to be a place that I want to be. And the number way to sculpt it to be a place you want to be is to put out what you want back. And so there are very, very few situations where I will actually unfriend or unfollow someone. And the difference between, like, just say it's Facebook, like, with those terms. But there's great platform on Instagram and Twitter, and there's so many platforms for social media. But I think Facebook's sort of universal. So you can unfriend someone and it's just cutting the ties. But you can unfollow and you won't get all their stuff in your face all the time. But if you still want to go look at great Aunt Sally who has different religious beliefs than you still can. But there's very, very few times I take it that far as to actually sculpt by unfriending or unfollowing. It's really just algorithms. Like, Facebook works in algorithms. So whatever you put out, it's going to throw back at you. So woo or not, if you're talking about politics, Facebook's going to show you more politics. Whether you believe that's universal or algorithm, it's going to happen. Like, it's just
whether it's woo or science.
Totally. If you're talking about meditation, you're going to get more meditation sent your way. And so know why you're there and put out why you're there so that you get more of it back. So really, again, we talked about this in another podcast, like, be intentional. Be intentional with what you put out and be intentional with how you respond. I've learned over time to not always comment my thoughts about other people's posts, because when you comment, you have to be prepared. For instance, there was an issue with my school district this morning. and I really wanted to comment something. And I had to say to myself, if you comment, you have to be prepared for the conversation that might follow. Mm-hmm. So don't put out a post about vaccination and expect to not have a conversation about it. Mm-hmm. A post about vaccination is going to stir conversation. So mm-hmm. if you don't want to have that conversation, if you don't have time for that conversation, don't put it out there.
So this brings up a really interesting sort of occurrence that I've seen happen a lot, where someone will say something that's very polarized, opinion based on their own wall, which granted, it is their own wall. And then someone else will react to it in a very strong way, and it will devolve into an argument about, well, I'm allowed to say anything I want. This is my opinion. This is my Facebook wall. Except that it becomes a very public place. It's the digital equivalent to standing on a soapbox on the sidewalk and having people who know you or kind of know you or don't know you
totally
hear your strong opinion. And they have just as much right to express theirs if you've posted it in that public way. And that doesn't seem to be the way that everybody feels about it. That the freedom of speech ends with the first comment,
Yeah, right.
And then no one's allowed to react, because then suddenly they're imposing upon your freedom of speech when they're really just exercising their own right to free speech. So that's just a really interesting thing. Like, be prepared for the conversation. It is not a diary entry when you write something on Facebook.
It shouldn't be. You have to imagine social media, particularly Facebook, and every different social media platform has a different vibe. But social media's vibe is it's as if you are in your living room with people. Mm-hmm. So if you were at a party and you wouldn't stand on the coffee table and make an announcement about nation choices, mm-hmm. don't do it on social media or politics or religion, because nothing should be said on social media that you're not willing to have a conversation about with anyone who sees it.
Right. Right.
It's a social platform. It's for us to converse and network and experience life through and with each other. Mm-hmm. And so you have to be really careful by knowing. And if you know why you're there, you make less and less mistakes about, creating or sculpting or getting frustrated on mm-hmm. Facebook or any social media.
Yeah, because it does. It's this weird enigma of simultaneously creating like a false sense of intimacy. Like, people that you barely know or that you've met once are in the same category as your best friends, mm-hmm. Your most intimate friendships. So it's like that interesting non-stratified intimacy where we can now say things.
Yeah.
And then also it has the normal internet semi-faceless permission to say things that you wouldn't say to someone's face. There's like this false intimacy, but also removal from the consequences of what we say.
And then hide.
Yeah, but you can't on social media. So it's a really interesting enigma of our digital age. It's kind of a new thing that we're all, I think, adjusting to. Totally. Okay, so what are some of the other tips?
Yeah, another thing would be to commit to authenticity. So commit to being, this is my opinion, commit to being you. Anything you say, like, make it authentic, make it real, make it true. Don't put things out there to sort of test the waters to figure out who you are. Like, you don't use social media to figure out who you are. You use social media to express who you are. So you have to know what's authentically you and then share it. You can't post something like to try and get feedback about who or what you are. Because I can't imagine a situation where it's not going to turn into a disaster. It's just like going back to the room full of people situation. If you're not going to get up on a coffee table and say to the party, like, help me figure out who I am, then like you have to specifically be asking for that. So really just commit to authenticity, like commit to being you, not figuring out who you are. And I think that's, of all the social media feedback I get from people, it's like, you're so real. And so when I'm having a challenging day for whatever reason, business or family or maintenance of cleaning my house, like I don't ignore those parts. Like I'm authentically me. Like I share the frustrations and I share the celebrations, but I also do that in a way that's just like, it's not intense. It's just authentically me. It's like maybe it has a little humor, back to our giggle, right? Like it has a little humor. It has a little thought-provoking inspiration. It has a little, it's just me. And so the place where social media gets really tricky is when you're being someone other than you. And then people are like, wait a second. You just had this whole conversation with me about how much you hate your job, and now you're on social media, like whatever. Now there's two sides to this coin. One side is, as a viewer, never make assumptions about someone's post. So don't go like, wait a second, you said that and now you're posting this. Like don't make an assumption and get confused, because just ask a question like, hey, what happened between yesterday and today that you've shifted your thoughts, right? Be curious, ask a question. Don't assume anything from anyone's post, because you don't know what happened from the last time you talked to them.
Offline, right?
Yeah, you don't know what happened. So you as a viewer have to be responsible to remember these are just snapshots. These are just nuggets. So you don't get to decide whether or not someone else is being authentic. That's not, you don't get to do that. Only thing you get to do is be authentic yourself. And when you're not is when you get into trouble. That's when people feel it. People know. People get confused. Then they don't trust. Then you just create this like black hole of social media misery. Commit to authenticity and commit to not making assumptions about other people's authenticity and just remain curious. Then you can create a really beautiful social space.
Yeah. So I love these tips, and I honestly think that the whole is more than the sum of the parts with what you're talking about here. I think any of these tips are so much stronger when used as you know, as a system with all of the others. Like I think about how, like if somebody only took your sort of rule about connecting authentically, and that involves sometimes sharing the shadows. Like if it was only that one, that could go badly without the other one that says like put out what you want to receive back, because sharing the shadows can often feel a lot like complaining if you're not doing it in, you know, an authentic way. And I can't tell you how many times I have seen that like sort of inconsistency in someone where they're preaching light and love and abundance and, you know, and all of that all of the time, and then they like unleash this deep dark shadow archetype scary thing all of a sudden with very little context. And also the whole vague booking thing, that is not being authentic. If you, that's really, that to me is very destructive. I hate when I see that kind of stuff. Like saying that you, whatever, we all know what I'm talking about, right? Where
I too, but I'm not sure I completely agree, because I think sometimes your vagueness creates curiosity, and you don't have to care why I was vague. I have to care why I was vague. So if the
way that you do a vague post, getting people's advice and trying to engage around a larger question and that kind of thing, that's not what I'm talking about.
It's tricky.
Yeah, I'm talking about the F my life, right. You know, things never work out, like, you know, I can't stand when people stab me in the back kind of thing. Right. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Where it's like they could argue that it's being authentic because they had a shitty day, but really it's just toxic. Totally different than what you do. I'm very familiar with what you do in lots of areas.
Good entry to if you're not sure how to use social media, follow people who you think use it well. Like just follow them and study them for a long time until you can start absorbing. Like it's just like choose a model and go in that direction. Was that our timer?
It was, yeah.
Okay, let me quickly share one more thing, which is to set boundaries. So we're all going to have different boundaries. For some people, their boundary is I don't share pictures of my kids. Mm-hmm. Some people, their boundary is I don't talk about religion. I don't talk about politics. I don't engage in offline private conversation based on posts. Like it doesn't matter what your boundaries are. But if you set them and you're clear about them, it's going to change your experience because it's more like an equation. You know where to go. You know what to do when something happens.
Yeah. I feel like that one ties right into what's your why for being on social media in the first place, and then defend it.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. All right. Awesome. Thank you, Amanda, because honestly, everybody, if I had to choose a model of how to interact with social media, it would be Amanda. She does it very beautifully and very authentically, and has, I got to know her first on Facebook, and she actually was who she appeared to be on Facebook. So very glad that happened that way. Okay. So that was a pretty cool episode, and we'll probably do even more of these because there are lots of ways to niche down how to make the most of a tool like social media. So I'm sure that we will revisit this, but how to approach it in a really healthy, balanced way, I think is an awesome place to start on creating wealth and wellness. So thanks for that, Amanda.
I feel like I talked the whole time. Woo.
You did, but that's okay. You're the one with more to say.
My danger zone.
I'm the devil's advocate for, does the world actually need social media? And I think it does.
It might not.
And you can remind me why.
Your world might not. My world.
It does. No, it does. It does. I'm always figuring out how to keep those healthy boundaries, and this conversation was helpful. So, okay, so let's end this episode with our asks.
I'm going to ask myself something today, and I'm going to do it sort of for accountability, but I'm going to ask myself out loud today to meditate daily imperfectly. Because my big thing with meditation is perfection, and oh my God, I'm thinking, and I got distracted, and this happened, and that happened, so I just don't do it at all. And that was a big takeaway for me from an experience I just had on a trip, was you have got to come home and meditate daily, even if it's 3 minutes, 5 minutes, whatever it is. And so I'm going to ask myself to meditate intentionally, imperfectly.
That is a really good one. All right. So my ask today is going to be a very personal, very logistic ask. And that is just buckle down and ask somebody to babysit my daughter so that my husband and I can go on a date. And I'm not sure who it's going to be yet, but that ask is happening, and it's happening soon, like today. So that's mine. I'm going to ask myself to ask someone to babysit.
Ask and you shall receive.
Let's hope so. I could use a date. My hubby could use a date too. Together, obviously. All right. Well, thank you, Amanda, for another really fun conversation. I love these, and I will talk to you next time.
Thanks for joining us for another episode. If you haven't already done so, please do us the honor of leaving a rating and review on iTunes. And check in with us on social. Amanda Kingsley is a work-from-home mother of 3. Her mission is to free parents from financial stress so they can spend more time being present with their children. Learn more at her website, thewhyhive.com. Tara Masildine is a passionate entrepreneur, founding several businesses over the last 15 years. She's currently living the adventure of being a CEO, mom, and collaborative coach. Find her at allin.life.